kind of seems like if you're gaining more knowledge, that gives you, from one perspective, it already shows you what's possible. So it's kind of stops you from imagining new things, because if you know how to chop an onion, why would you even consider how to chop it differently? It doesn't make sense. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. But the other one is, with more experience, you start shooting down ideas more quickly. I need to go to work quickly, I'm late. You wouldn't dream of catching a rocket there or getting on a helicopter, because it's not possible. Nothing says that's not possible. It's your experience. And so in that way, isn't there something fundamental to knowledge that inhibits creativity? And how can you have both?
Hey, I'm Osama, and this is the NAİMİ STUDİO podcast. Our mission is to help people cultivate meaning through creativity. We're a small team right now, just a father and son, currently focused on building an archive of unique visual pieces inspired by conversations with people from all walks of life. The pieces you see behind me were inspired by today's discussion with our first ever guest on the podcast, Mr. Dimitar Ruzhev. Ruzhev is a friend and former colleague of mine who I admire for his deep technical curiosity and his sense of wonder. As a self-proclaimed tinkerer, Ruzhev draws upon his expertise in mechanical and electrical engineering to turn complex ideas into tangible and useful solutions, all the while having quite a lot of fun in the process. Since filming the podcast, Ruzhev has embarked on a new adventure as an entrepreneur, founding Auto Apparel in a pursuit to revolutionize the clothing industry by fully automating clothing manufacture. Today, we discuss the fragility of childhood imagination, the underrated value of boredom, the paradox of knowledge, Bulgarian pastries, all things creativity, and a whole lot more. Let's get into it. Dimitar Ruzhev. Oh no, I called you Dimitar Ruzhev before.
It's weird hearing my first name.
You know the singer Seal? You heard of Seal?
No, I wouldn't say so.
He's just a singer that goes by the name Seal. Like, that's his name. I don't think he has a second name.
Just one name.
Yeah. And your name is Ruzhev, in my mind.
True, and according to Novi, it's Ruzhev.
And also, according to the internet, www.ruzhev.com. That's a thing.
Visit it.
It's such a good website. So yes, Ruzhev, talk to me about Banitsa. Why are we going to be eating Banitsa later?
Love that you're starting with that. Banitsa is a fairly traditional Bulgarian dish. I mean, as much as you can call anything on the Balkans traditional from one country, because everything is so similar that the Turkish have burek, the Romanians and the Greeks probably have a similar thing. So yeah, a traditional, purely Bulgarian dish. Just some thin pastry, cheese, yogurt. What more? I mean, I've been having it since I was little, so I can't really appreciate it fully. So I'll bounce the question back to you. What is it for you?
It feels special. It feels different. And I think what I'm excited about is it reminded me of one of the only memories that I have of being in Turkey. We went on a family holiday for like 2 weeks in Turkey. And the one thing that I remember more vividly than anything was eating burek on the side of the pavement.
Oh, brilliant.
As a little
brilliant.
kid. So Banitsa like hits that same spot of, I don't know, I just feel good when I eat it.
Awesome. I love it how something simple like taste or smell can just unlock memories. So really glad that happened for you. The same way that you have Greg's here, we have Banitsa places. They're called just Banitsa places. So you go there and it's essentially a pastry shop. Banitsa being the main one, but you also get sausage rolls, things like that. And people would grab that on the way to work.
Yeah. It's a lot of dairy as well.
I think it's impossible to be lactose intolerant in Bulgaria. We have so much dairy in everything that I don't know if you'd survive if you're lactose intolerant.
I sincerely hope my fridge is not lactose intolerant because it is. I've never had as much dairy in this fridge.
But you're gonna get the shits tomorrow, and it's not gonna be fun.
And we've got Banitsa, and we've also got the butternut squash risotto with blue cheese.
Fantastic.
Blue cheese,
What
as
more?
if there's not enough dairy in the dishes coming up.
But cheese is happiness. Out of all the foods, I would say universally humans can agree that cheese is just good.
I can't argue with that.
What's the best type of cheese?
I'm going to say camembert.
Oh, strong choice.
I think it's camembert. Camembert is the one that you eat with, or the one that is like cut into a diamond, sits in the wooden tray, right?
And then you bake it in the oven.
Yeah, so when people serve it like that with honey and a little bit of rosemary in it, and then some crusty bread to dip in it in,
Fantastic.
I just don't think you can go wrong with that.
You get fondue without the hassle of doing fondue.
100%. It's like a portable fondue.
I think I once had deep fried camembert. It was essentially the same gooey meal, but also very crispy outside. Highly recommended.
I mean, so where did cooking begin for you?
Probably my family. So my mom is a great cook. Whenever we get together with friends, either at our place or their places, usually she is the one to cook because everyone loves her dishes, including one time, one of my really close friends. She is not super into meat, and my mom made some really small, like chicken fillets, grilled a bit with a bit of lemon, nothing terribly complicated. And my friend loved it so much that she asked her mom to make them. And her mom tried to recreate the dish and didn't do so well. My friend was like, "What are you doing? Bring Ruzhev's mom's oven and the pan and Ruzhev's mom to try and help you out and teach you how to do it." And yeah, so I think I've been used to quite good homemade food because also my grandma cooks. My grandma used to cook really well. And yeah, started doing that in uni and been loving it since. Like when you see people just enjoying food, it's like, yes, I did well.
There's little else that brings as much satisfaction as someone saying, "Wow, that's great."
Absolutely. It can really make the evening because if you think about it, when you're going out with friends, a big part of that is the meal. You go to a restaurant, that's the whole point. And being able to achieve that restaurant luxury feeling at home is even better because you have a better atmosphere, I would argue. You're with friends, good meal, good laughs. And it's also quite empowering. It's like, yeah, I want to eat this, and you tailor it to your own taste, and it's even better than the restaurant that way.
No, I mean it's absolutely true. Like I think some of the most happy memories that I have, certainly with friends from high school and stuff, like there's certain dishes or there's certain meals that we've enjoyed together which people continue to like speak about. You know, like when we forget what we actually did that day, or even who was there, you know, you just sort of.
But you remember the dish.
Yeah, you just remember the dish. Like,
how revolutionary was that? What do you know? What was the dish?
No, it wasn't necessarily that it was novel or exceptional, or it could just be a mixture of lots of different factors, right? It could be the ambiance, how everyone was feeling, you know, whether someone was whether everyone was hungover or not. Like, it doesn't need to be fine dining. Yeah,
100%. And because you definitely are a better chef than me. How did it start for you? 100%. I can do a few dishes quite well, but every time I come here, it's like there's a starter. And then before that, there's a starter to the starter. Then there's the main and dessert. And well, it's at least 4-course meal. And all of it is delicious and different and something that even in the restaurant, I would say I would struggle to find.
Well, that's very, very generous of you to say. You can come back again.
100%. Osama bed and breakfast. Heard it here first. No, seriously, yeah. How did that start? How did you cultivate it?
So for me, I mean, this isn't a memory necessarily, but it's a story that my mum and dad have told me about, I guess, where my enjoyment of cooking started.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably less than 3 years old, about 2.5, something like that, sitting on the countertop with my grandmother while she would be making this traditional Arabic dish called, it might even be an Iraqi dish. It's called bamia. So bamia is a tomatoey stew with lamb and okra, loads of garlic and lemon and bay leaves, and it's really, really simple. But I would sit there next to my grandma while she'd be making this bamia and fish out all of the garlic.
That sounds fantastic.
So she'd have to put like 2 or 3 times as much garlic in there, because I'd just sit there and just wolf it down, like fish them out with tiny little hands. So I think that's where it started.
Mm.
But no, I think the point at which I became a lot more serious about it, or I started to be conscious of how much I enjoyed it, was at Christmas times.
Mm-hmm.
My uncles would be the ones that would sort of take control of the menu and the cooking. And for me, it was a great way to spend time with my uncles, who I didn't see like a huge amount. So it was really, really special to see them and cook with them, and have that sense of triumph when you're a kid, when like you're sitting around a table and the whole family, it's quite a big family, would sit around, and there's so many dishes on the table, and just knowing that you helped a little bit.
That's so wholesome. So you were helping out with some of the cooking.
Yeah, they just give me tasks that they knew I couldn't fuck up. And then eventually I took more and more control of it, to the point where now the last 2 or 3, well, the last Christmas certainly, I was basically just running the menu in a way, with lots of help.
That's
lots of help from family, because now people have got kids and stuff. I don't think they have as much time on their hands as I do. So being
maybe, but nonetheless, that's a huge achievement and a huge sort of that they're acknowledging your skill. Because if your cooking was shit, they wouldn't do it, even if they were super
That's
busy,
true.
right?
I don't know. You can be pretty sleep deprived with kids.
No. From what I've eaten, you are cooking amazingly. So you've now joined the elders of the family. Is this how the ranking goes? It's not by strength; it's by cooking skill.
It is by cooking skill, and everyone's got their like absolute knockout dishes as well. Yeah, I think when everyone's on full form, it's very difficult to keep control.
Have you had a family gathering where everyone brings their speciality dish to one massive best of the best? I wouldn't say showdown, but extravaganza at the very least.
I think showdown's an excellent word.
No, because that causes family feuds. You don't want to go too far.
We haven't done that. I think that's an excellent idea. I am a little bit terrified because there's a lot of incredible cooks in the family. My grandma recently made this cauliflower with sesame pastes and pomegranate and almond flake thing, which was just amazing.
Really good that we had food beforehand, because even now I'm salivating.
Oh my gosh.
This is bad for the podcast. Speaking is difficult when you're salivating.
It's bad for the mics, right? We're going to have to insure the mics for water damage. Yeah, no, you're right. We should probably move on from food, because
we'll come back to that.
We'll
I'm
go
sure.
crazy. We can come back to it. It's a heartwarming thing. All right. So the first question is, what's your story?
Yeah, so I mean, let's start with the present. Working as an engineer, enjoying anything technical in my free time, love traveling, I love educating myself more on the technical things. I watch so much YouTube and other things on technical topics, discussions, newest developments, and tutorials for beginners. Love it. And generally, yeah, free time wise, probably the main thing is, yeah, as I said, traveling and spending time with friends and family, really. And I think all of these things started when I was little, as trivial as that might be. Yeah, I have a really good family. They've been super friendly. Going back to the cooking, every evening we would get together, have dinner, sort of living very communally as a family, seeing my grandparents quite often. And equally with that, I've had some really good friends. I'm still friends with my neighbors. They're the same age as me. We've been friends basically since we were like 2 or 3, I want to say. And that's still going strong. So I remember every day after, I mean, we went to kindergarten together, obviously, but after school, and we kind of separated a bit, we would still come back, go to the yard, play football, have a barbecue, or just chat to one another. We knew our home phones by heart. We'd just come back home, give it a go. You there? Yeah. Where are we playing? Mine or yours? Yeah, we would just go and spend all of the time together. And I think that really cultivated the feeling of good friends around you, people who you can rely on and just have fun with. And the other part, the more technical side, is I think I have told you the story of the fans.
I would love to hear the story of the fans.
So when I was little, my dad would explain to me how machines work, how things are. And I think at one point I just must have become obsessed with it. I must have been, I don't know, 3 or 4. I don't remember this. This is a story I've been told. And we're walking with my parents, and anytime I would see anything resembling a fan, could be a wind turbine, could be an AC unit, doesn't matter. I would see it 100 meters away and I would stop and be like, until my parents acknowledge it. So I would sit there for 5 or 10 minutes until my parents see it. And the trick of, oh, yeah, of course it's there, didn't work. They had to look at it. And apparently that was a bit annoying to my parents, but I find it hilarious that I was so obsessed with it.
It's such a amazing image in my mind of a young Ruzhev really frustrated at his parents not acknowledging the fan. Like, it's not even the fact that you need to say anything about it. It's, you just need to acknowledge it. Like,
yeah, how dare they?
It's, Mum, Dad, like, that thing exists over there. Look, you have to look at it.
Yeah, this is the most important thing that's happened all day. Of course they have to acknowledge it. Poor parents. What do children do to parents? We don't deserve our parents. And I think that culminated at one point. We were prepping for some math competitions, and the institute where we were doing that didn't have an AC. So I was like, I'm going to throw me together a fan. So I got like a small motor I had, popped the propeller on it, wired like a small car battery to it, and then went there, turned it on, and went. Nobody could hear anything in the room. It was ridiculously loud. But I had it blowing in my face, and it was the coolest thing ever. So, yeah, as far as I can remember, I've been really quite fascinated with technology and just how the world works. I mean, the other side of the story is that I didn't put any protection around the fan. It was spinning ridiculously fast. So very quickly, one of my friends reached in and it hit their finger quite badly. So
these are minor details.
Roses.
These are minor details.
Minor.
What was it that drew you to things like fans?
Difficult to say, really, especially at that age. But sort of when I got older, I started playing with Legos. Legos, best thing ever. They give freedom to your imagination, the same way that I imagine painting does for a lot of people. And from that on, Legos actually had a robotics set, which allowed you to plug in like a small computer to it with motors, sensors, and you could make it do all sorts of things. And there are many competitions for those robots. I think what I found generally fascinating about it is you can essentially do whatever you want. You have a vision of how something will look, and you can put it together. You have a vision of something moving or creating sound. You can really do that. And when you combine that with software, it allows you to bring things to life. I think I have used this expression in the past, that it's the closest you can get to being a wizard. You dream it, you build it, because with software you can create many programs and games and things like that. And that's really fascinating because we've essentially made a piece of rock think for itself. But with programming, it's a bit more constrained to the computer, so it's difficult for it to come out. And with mechanics on the other side, it's you have the physical thing, but it doesn't really do much. And for me, electronics is that magical middle ground where you have the object and you have the brains and you're combining it all to one, what's essentially a creature in a way. You're creating artificial life, which is ever the more prevalent nowadays with AI, of course. But I think that was fascinating to me when I was little is, yeah, you're playing with this and all of the stories you have in your head of games and fantasies, they're not just fantasies anymore because you have made them. And you build a small car and the car goes vroom and you're chasing after the car, you're the dinosaur. It's really empowering the curiosity and the fun that you can have when you're little.
That's absolutely right. And calling them creatures, I think, is actually quite a good way of thinking about it. Or at least if someone had just come across some of the things that, you know, are ubiquitous in our life now, and they didn't know anything about, like if an alien civilization came and they didn't know anything about it, why is it that an RC car or a fan is not a creature?
Yeah,
it is,
true.
It is a moving thing. It's got its own, well, I guess the more advanced things, like a Roomba, for example, seems to have its own mind. It's
Very
making
much
its own
so.
decisions in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, would you say the Roomba's more intelligent than a fly is? Well, I would say so.
I think that's a great comparison.
Yeah, and I think
Fight. Put them in a cage.
Have you seen the Roomba fights?
No.
Where they tape a couple of balloons to the back of each Roomba. You get a few, and you put a small knife at the front, and you just let them go. And it's kind of like a snail race, but yeah, who's going to survive the longest? It's hilarious to watch.
Is this just a modern day version of Robot Wars? Did you ever watch Robot Wars?
Was that where you got like big robots with spinny things whacking each other?
Yeah, it's like this competition where you had to, you know, it was like robotics engineers, I guess, who would create a robot of some sort with some special, I guess, power or strength, you know, whether that be, you know, a blade that rotates at a ridiculous RPM and has some, you know, like, I guess, bludgeon at the end of it, or whether it's a robot that simply just flips other robots upside down.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So it's like they all had their thing, and they would put them in a cage, and whichever robot was destroyed, obviously
Fight
lost.
to the death.
Yeah, it was a fight to the death completely.
I think I have seen a few episodes, and that sounds like such an epic thing.
Yeah.
Both to watch and to participate in.
Absolutely. And the arena is amazing as well. It's just this like big glass or perspex cage. So there's parts flying everywhere because these things get mashed up. Like there's
how powerful are we talking? Because how big are the robots?
Like some of the robots are the size of this table.
Oh, okay, that can do some damage.
Yeah. And some of them are like, you know, they have sledgehammers built into them, and you know they just smash whatever's in front of them. Some of them have like this absurd claw that comes out, grabs the robot in front of it, and then a circular saw will try and chomp its way through the whole thing.
Oh, that's brilliant. I would love to see that as a children's competition.
Well, children compete in it.
Oh,
it's like
true.
It's, I don't know what the rules are about the teams. But the teams, at least from what I remember, it was a mix of like ages. Some of them were quite young.
Fair, but I guess if you get the few sort of PhD level engineers in there, they would kind of obliterate the competition through just designing the hell out of that thing. And that it would be interesting to watch, sort of professional versus professional, but that would be kind of more streamlined designs. You wouldn't get the crazy ideas. Whereas I would really watch the kids version where you get, I don't know, a floppy thing just because someone wanted to build it. And it performs terribly, but it doesn't matter because it's all about fun at the end of the day.
I love the thought of just turning like crazy kid sketches into robots. That'd be awesome.
We have to do that.
Let's do it.
Yeah, just give them a bit of
sack off whatever you're doing, Ruzhev. It can't be as important as this.
I mean, that's essentially what those robots when I was growing up used to do. So I would do all the crazy things with them.
Yeah. I mean, kids have a knack for, I guess, distilling things down into like the pure essence of the idea almost. I don't know if you've been to Newcastle, right?
No, I don't think I have.
You haven't been to Newcastle. A thing to see when you go to Newcastle is the Angel of the North. It's this enormous sculpture.
I have seen videos of it.
It's a beautiful sculpture. It's made of Corten steel. So it's just this enormous statue of, or I guess this person generally, with like huge wings.
Yeah.
It's like these rectangular wings. And the design for that actually came from, or was inspired by the artist's trip to a school, I think. Or he basically asked kids to draw something that would protect the city. And a lot of kids would draw angels, and I guess somehow they converged on this form.
That is such a wholesome story. I got the chills.
I feel like in that scenario, the kids came up with the best idea for sure.
Absolutely.
Like I think if you'd asked adults to do it, maybe it would have been a bit complicated or, overly thought potentially.
Kids are so creative. I think, I don't know where I heard it, but if you get really young kids, or 80-90% of them tend to score basically a genius on creativity. And then 10 years later, if you do the same study on the same children, it's only a couple percent that are still creative. So something happens in there. The world kicks in. I don't know. They get external ideas. But yeah, kids are so creative, and it's fascinating. It's incredible. I don't know about you, but I personally look very fondly on those times when I was little and I could just have fun without anything. I would go outside with my bike and a couple of sticks and I would have a blast. It would be the best day ever. Whereas today, even if I'm watching a great film, I might still feel a bit bored.
That's so true. It's almost like the bar for enjoyment is maybe not the right word. The bar for maybe stimulation, or
the bar for anything.
The bar for anything is quite high, but it's not necessarily high. It's not that the things that we interact with now or that we find entertaining are actually higher. There's just more of it, and it seems a lot more complex. And the thought of having 2 sticks and a bike and going outside is so simple. It almost focuses your mind on those things.
It's also an internal thing of, oh, I wouldn't go out with a bike and 2 sticks because that would be boring. How do you know that's going to be boring? Just look at all the kids doing it. It's incredible. But I at least I personally think I have a kind of a barrier of, oh, it has to be at least this good in order for me to even try it. But that's a very artificial barrier learned through experience. But is it true? I don't think so.
It's an interesting thought. Why don't we nowadays, given that kids still do have fun playing, with simple things, although maybe that's changing a little bit with things like
very, very true
with technology. But do you think if we went outside right now and had 2 sticks and a bike, would we have fun?
I think actually that's why drinking is so much fun, because it dumbs you down back to that state where you can have fun with the simplest most things, like when you just can be laughing at the other person for having a hat on, or someone, you're playing cards and someone plays an obviously wrong one, everyone bursts out in laughter because they did something stupid. I think drinking kind of brings us back to those simpler times, and if we can learn to unlock that without drinking, I think it would be fantastic. But yeah, to answer your question, if we go outside with a couple of sticks, in the beginning it would probably be quite awkward, but maybe after an hour we would really get into it.
You mean after the alcohol kicked in?
I was picturing without drinking, but yeah.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about alcohol in that way. Yeah, I guess it does sort of loosen your inhibitions, or you return to your most primal.
Basically, removes the thinking part of your brain.
the part of your brain that says, but it's just a bunch of sticks.
Basically, because you don't have that overthinking aspect. I think there could be something similar here. Is you're overthinking, is the game going to be fun, instead of just giving it a try.
Yeah, or like, how fun was this in contrast to the game that I played last weekend? And
yeah.
You just sort of, it takes you out of it. Okay, so there's the transition from childhood to adulthood. Something seems to happen where that 80% of geniuses in the creative domain dwindles to, I don't know what the percentage is, but what do you think is happening there? And why, I guess, if you talk from your own perspective, why is it that you were still able to maintain that creative spark? Because it's not like careers in innovation or any creative path is without its challenges. Like there's a huge amount of frustration. There's a huge number of potential barriers. But what is it that you think has kept you on the path?
Very good question. I probably don't have the right answer, but thinking about it, what nurtures? Is that the proper word?
Yeah, nurtures.
Creativity. I think if you're overstimulated in some way, for instance, if you have seen a film before you read the book, when you read the book, you imagine the characters, more like you're borrowing the characters from the film. Whereas if you read the book first, that gives you the option to imagine those characters, create them yourself with the features that you like and don't like. So I think in a way, especially nowadays with computers, because I think we were basically the last generation to grow up without computers. Sort of, they got introduced when we were teenagers-ish. And so having computer games and things like that are already pre-made for you, it's like a McDonald's burger. It's so heavily processed and it's so easy to take in that it's very easy to go that path, but that kind of numbs down your senses for what the initial raw experience is. And so, yeah, I think in order to be creative, to maintain your creativity, you need to be doing it. It's like a muscle, exercising it in a way. And I suppose that can come in many different forms. For me, it was reading books. My parents were very insistent on it. And I did, when I was little, I loved reading. How is it properly said in English? Count of Monte Cristo?
Count of Monte Cristo? Monte Cristo?
Yeah. I only know it in Bulgarian. I think I finished that and the subsequent book, which are both like proper books, in about 72 hours. I basically...
Just lapping it up.
Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then in uni, I stopped reading so much because I was busy with work. If you're reading lectures all day, you don't really feel like reading in the evening. But I feel that was a big part of it, because when you're imagining the stories and the characters, it's great. It's great, and it really helps you. You're not drawing it out, but at least I sometimes think in pictures and or have a narrative of side stories of what happened with the other characters, sort of all of that. But the other side of it probably was what we were just talking about, of building things. Because even if you have a set challenge of build a robot that, I don't know, gets colored balls and sorts them in color, there are a million different ways you can build it. And if someone gives you the instructions as to how to build that robot, that becomes ingrained in you. But I never used to follow instructions with any of the things I built. I think I was just stubborn. Like, we engineers, we really hate reading manuals, not part of the job description. And so I would just try to do it. And in doing that, say, what happens if I do this? Like, that question of what if allows you to be creative. Because if you're just given the answer, you follow it blindly and that's it. But yeah, having the challenge to overcome and not being given the solution. For instance, for competitions, because I used to do math and physics competitions, we would be given quite a hard problem of prove this. And you would need to figure out how to get there. Whereas in sort of the normal school curriculum or the university curriculum, you would be told sort of the task would have that end goal. But before that, you would have go A, B, C, D, E, F, which would guide you through the steps of doing that. Mm-hmm. So in a way, the creative problem solving part is being taken out of the challenge. But I think the beauty of the challenge is that creative part, because even though you're solving something that's within the boundaries of math or physics, there's still many different approaches you can take and all of them are valid. And I think that is kind of a different type of creativity. It's more like you have all the puzzle pieces of how to get from A to B, but putting them together such that it makes a complete journey, that is also a creative process.
I'd love to come back to the point that you made about thinking in pictures. So let's put a pin in that.
Before that, may I bounce the question back to you? Because you are a very creative person. I mean, designer, drawing things, imagining things. How has it been for you in a career that's typically seen as a creative one?
I've never ever considered any other option. If you know
wow.
What I mean. I don't think there's any point in putting creativity on a scale. It's more just like, how do you think about your own creativity? And for me, it's just been not just a part of my identity, but it feels like I've identified by it almost entirely. And maybe in some way to an unhealthy degree at certain stages, because it feels like there've been times where I haven't been creating that much generally in my life, and it gets me down. Like, I actually don't feel like I'm being myself. So yeah, it's so central to my identity in a lot of ways that it's difficult to see if and when I've fallen off the path until it's too late.
Right, yeah, because you're so immersed to it. But I absolutely love that you found the thing for you so early on. I think that's quite rare in general.
I think it's almost there's kind of like a momentum that happens when, if you recognize it in yourself and the people around you validate you for it, suddenly you're crafting your own identity around it, and other people are sort of projecting that identity onto you.
100%, yeah.
So there's like this mix of desire in yourself as well as a external expectation that creates quite a lot of pressure.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess the danger with that is if you feel that pressure, you can lose sight of actually what you are supposed to be doing, or at least like what would be a better path for you. Like it's kind of interesting for me to think, would there be a better path than a creative path for me? I wouldn't know because
you haven't explored anything else.
Because I haven't explored anything else, and also everyone would have been pointing me down this path in some way.
I think also the danger, because so for me, a fairly similar thing, because I also do engineering, math, physics, and competitions around that. I've been doing fairly well at it. So my parents pushed me towards it. I enjoyed it. More challenges came. So yeah, as you said, a natural progression of you get challenged more and expectations are higher. So you put more effort into it and you get better and you go down that path. But I think a really big danger with that is what happens if the expectation goes too high? If you can't deliver on the challenge or what's expected of you, because then, as you said, you don't know any other path, and all of a sudden this one seems blocked. And how do you deal with that?
It's such a delicate thing, right? Like, not just, I mean, obviously it's very difficult internally for you to set appropriate expectations and not be too hard on yourself when you over expect it on yourself. But it's also very difficult, I imagine, for other people, because they think they're helping you by saying,
yeah, they're encouraging you, pushing you. Yeah.
Pushing you, exactly. Like they are building that momentum with well-meaning, but it can absolutely backfire, and you're the one that suffers from it. Now you've not only not fulfilled the expectation, but now your whole identity is being questioned in a way.
Yeah. And it's not great if those external people, like when you fail in some way, are like, oh yeah, it's not that big of a deal, or like, yes, no worries, that sort of thing happens, because it's kind of doubly worse. I was expecting this I failed, and now I'm toning down the expectation for you because you're not good enough.
Whoa.
It's sort of doubly bad.
Fuck.
I think that happens a lot with going to university, actually, because you're doing really well in high school. You're one of the top performers in whatever subject you've chosen, and then you go to university, especially if you go internationally, where it's the best people from all the different high schools together, and all of a sudden you're not the best because there can only be a couple of best people. Our university was really good in terms of providing help for people, and one thing they generally spoke about was the imposter syndrome of, why am I here? These people are so much better than I am, even though we were the best at high school. So I think that's the point in life for a lot of people where you bump into that expectation, mainly internal, probably expectation of, yeah, I am the best. But
it can also happen internally. Like if you're not holding yourself to a high standard, it feels like you're doing yourself a disjustice.
Right. But if you rank up the pressure too much on yourself, then you start failing. So where's that middle ground? That's probably more difficult, especially now that you've started doing your own thing, because you're the one setting expectations. Whereas if you're working a normal job, you're kind of told what to do, and the expectation is set, and it should be fairly realistic to work for both sides. But when you're your own boss, how do you manage that?
The one thing that has been the biggest challenge in the short period of time that I've been doing this so far has been exactly this, which is I am my own boss and my only employee. Whichever part of me is the future focus part and the vision setter, the person with the ideas for what could be interesting and all this. I love that part of me. But he tends to shaft the other part of me, which has to do the work. And it's really, really difficult. I don't know what the right answer is for this. I suspect it's going to be
there probably isn't one.
I don't think I'll ever even arrive at the perfect balance. There is no such thing as perfection, obviously, but this is going to be the biggest challenge that I face generally, is setting appropriate expectations of myself.
Your own worst critic.
Yeah. Like, even if we just take a small slither of experience on this journey, which is, say, preparing to sit down with someone, right? You can set such a high expectation of what you want to cover in that conversation that you take yourself out of the experience, and you also set too much pressure to where you're not actually comfortable anymore.
Right. Right.
which would lower the quality of the conversation anyway. You can't set too high of a bar, but also you don't want to set too low of a bar because that's not fair on anyone.
You live and you learn in general.
I think that's probably why experimentation is going to be the key thing that turns a lot of your thinking and worrying and expectation into second nature, so you don't have to think about it anymore.
Very true. Very true. What about the effect of other people? So when you're setting the bar for yourself, and if there's no one else to bounce that through, it can obviously veer off in one or the other direction. But do you think having other people that you work with, or maybe that are your boss, or or even if they're your employees, do you think that helps in having a better overall expectation?
Yeah, external feedback and just sense checking is, I'm not as proactive as I should be about it, but every single time that I have received feedback or checked in with someone, it's always been so helpful. Like checking in with family. My brother, for example, is in some ways the voice that's in my head of like the voice of reason. My brother and my family are the ones that will help me set those good expectations. They have this layer of, they want the best for you, which sometimes you lose sight of when all you want to do is do the best for the thing.
It's incredible that you have such a supportive group around you.
Yeah, it feels that way. And yeah, I try not to take it for granted, but I'm sure it's impossible to not take things like that for granted.
No, it very much does sound like you are appreciating the help that they're giving you. So I don't think you should worry about that.
Thanks, Mum and Dad. And SL, the voice of reason.
Yeah, because when you're just dwelling on things by yourself, it's really easy to get caught up and sort of start going in a circle, and you need someone else to kind of nudge you a bit, give you a fresh idea. It's essentially the same thing that happens with anxiety and depression, right? You dwell too much on one thing, whereas in reality, as you said, do we need to do this? Does it matter? Probably not.
Like my mum said this thing. She says it quite often, actually. My mum sometimes says, just be kind to yourself. And I think that's something which you don't end up doing when you get really immersed in a project.
You focus on the results.
Yeah, you lose yourself completely in it. And you're so hell-bent on this thing being better, and it comes at the expense of yourself sometimes.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a worthwhile trade.
No.
Ever.
Exactly. But it seems it in the moment because you're occupying a certain mindset, which is the one which wants to optimize for the thing.
Yeah, 100%. My mom had a similar thing when I was going to uni. She was like, it doesn't matter how well you do, just don't get depressed. Because all of the education and achievements, none of that matters if you can't enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the foundation for everything else, right? In a lot of ways.
And that's what happens with a lot of super driven people. You go out, you make a company, you get billions of dollars, but in the end you don't have any friends, or you've missed out on traveling when you were young. I don't know. There's always something missing.
So one of the things that I wanted to come back to was you mentioned how things like movies rob you of your own imagination. This sort of touches on the participation aspect of the creative process. Like you being told what the steps are to create something is different to actually you finding out a way to the resolution. And it's sort of, I guess it's similarly tied to that imagination thing. Like I'd imagine if you read a book where every single detail of the characters was given to you, it probably wouldn't
Good point.
evoke the same level of imaginative exploration as if they leave some details left out.
Yeah, I suppose there has to be, you need a trail of breadcrumbs to guide you, because it's a difficult journey. Well, whether you're imagining something or solving a problem doesn't really matter, but you don't want the full path. You need to have enough space between the breadcrumbs to fill in the gaps. I'll probably flip that back real quick. And what's the definition of being creative? Or what are certain aspects of creativity?
The way of thinking about creativity that's resonated with me the most comes from a book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick Rubin is a music producer who claims that he knows nothing about music. He's worked with, huge artists like Amy Winehouse, Johnny Cash, Jay-Z.
Wow.
This guy is just
That's a good
incredible. Kendrick Lamar, incredibly creative, clearly.
CV.
And he wrote a book called The Creative Act. And one of the things he was saying is creating anything that wasn't there before is an act of creativity.
I like that.
So even having a conversation with someone is a form of creativity.
True.
Because before we sat down, this conversation didn't exist. And to some extent, you have to be participating in that process for that thing to come alive. Otherwise, it stays in the realm of possibility. So one of the things that he talks about when it comes to coming up with ideas or making ideas tangible, he talks about there being, the idea itself is not your idea. It's not something that you necessarily own or came up with out of thin air. It was always going to be an idea that had to manifest itself, and you're just the vessel for that manifestation. So I think about it as like this other dimension where all possible ideas live. All conversations, all pieces of art, all pieces of engineering, any innovation, anything that hasn't been made real yet exists in this other dimension.
Those sprinkles of creativity and insight.
Yeah, they are all out there, and they are infinite. And it's just our job, really, as creative people, is to bridge the gap between that dimension and this one. So he talks about how the most creative people are the ones that have the most sensitive antenna for the ideas that exist in this other realm.
Love that.
So whenever you see an idea come to being, and you're like, oh, I had that idea years ago, or in some way you feel like you either should have done that, or you had done that, or you had that idea at some point. He says, no, it was just time for that idea to be made real.
True. That would be a great premise for a book or a film. There's a dimension of creativeness and insight and inventions. Sort of someone's trying to figure out a way to snatch all of those.
Yeah,
that would be great.
What frequency do you have to tune into? But it goes to the point of like, how do you access that creativity, or how do you tune into that other realm? It's it's what we are constantly trying to figure out, right? Because it depends on so many different factors. It's like how you feel, what you've eaten, where you are, what
shower thoughts, the perfect example.
Exactly, right? So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the portal into the other realm, is the shower.
It's water. Working back from the definition of that you just said, that creativity is making anything that didn't exist before. What would stop that? If you have an idea that can either be shut down, so that's something blocking your ideas, or you come up with the idea, but it's already been invented. So I think that's already having the image of something in your head. And so in that sense, it would really be anything. Kind of seems like if you're gaining more knowledge, that gives you, from one perspective, it already shows you what's possible. So it's kind of stops you from imagining new things, because if you know how to chop an onion, why would you even consider how to chop it differently? It doesn't make sense. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. But the other one is, with more experience, you start shooting down ideas more quickly. I need to go to work quickly, I'm late. You wouldn't dream of catching a rocket there or getting on a helicopter, because it's not possible. Nothing says that's not possible. It's your experience. And so in that way, isn't there something fundamental to knowledge that inhibits creativity? And how can you have both?
There's definitely knowledge traps in a lot of ways.
I think that's why at Innovia, when we would do crazy projects for people who are experts in the field, that's what they valued, is that external side, those external ideas that they would shoot down very quickly, but we would say, hey, this might just work.
You might be able to chop an onion this way instead. Do you think there's a difference between creativity and innovation? Because in my mind, there's potentially a subtle difference, which is that innovation is creating something novel and useful. So certainly in the context of creating new products or services, if everyone was to arrive at the same idea, that is no longer innovative. They have been creative in their process.
Yes. Yeah.
But the actual output of their creativity isn't innovative.
Yeah, I would agree with the usefulness aspect of it. A painting is creative, but it's not necessarily innovative. And equally, if you independently come up with the same product that someone else has done, that's still creative. But yeah, as you said, it's not innovative.
I mean, it's interesting to wonder whether just becoming more expert in something is a creative pursuit.
I think if your learning, if your knowledge is quite broad, it might spark new ideas. So if you're told in school or university, this type of problem, this type of situation, you deal in this way, sort of you're given the method, you're given the solution, the formula to do it, I would say that hampers creativity, because you're told if A, then B. You don't consider any other options. But if you're taught these are the fundamental principles and this is what you can do with them, I think that's a much better way of teaching, because then you do have the pieces of the puzzle, but you're not told there's only one way of putting them together. So that does give you some creativity. But if you expand that even further to knowing many different things, and I think that's why nowadays cross specialists between different fields are being so sought after, is you know how to do one thing in one area, but you also know how to do other things in different areas. And if you start drawing these parallels, that's not something that has been explored much before. You're using the method from one area and in a completely different one. And because that's a new method for that area, you can achieve new and different results. So I think if knowledge is broad, it can help you be more creative.
If you didn't apply the knowledge from one field to another, say you just engaged in your own intellectual pursuit, could you argue that you're still creating a different version of yourself, or at least there are ideas forming in your head that weren't there before? And so even if you haven't enacted, or even if you haven't engaged in the process of making those ideas tangible, they didn't exist before. So maybe you are being creative in your intellectual pursuit.
Very true. Yeah, I think thought experiments can definitely help, because that's how Einstein came up with the principles of relativity. He said, if I'm traveling with light, with the speed of light, and that's the maximum speed, what would happen? How would the world look like? But that does require you to have something. What would prompt those thought experiments? You would need to have something new, some new problem or something difficult, because if you already have the boiler template for how to do it, you would just do that.
But what if it's new to you? So in the case of Einstein, it was new to him and it was new to everyone.
True.
But if you're sat there and you're pushing the boundaries of your own knowledge,
Yeah, I would agree
there
with
is
that.
an element of discovery and in your connecting the dots, or in you asking the next question.
Yeah.
That is a form of creativity, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's when you're reaching outside of your knowledge.
Yeah.
So in the pursuit of more knowledge, you are being creative. But once you attain that knowledge, you're no longer creative in that field.
Yeah, I guess you can't stop.
You just have to
keep
continue going. Yeah.
Okay, so thinking about Einstein with his light wave, do you have adventures that you go on in your mind that are similar to that? I know that you mentioned before about you see things in pictures. Are there some reoccurring pictures that you've been mulling over recently?
So the short answer of that is I don't know, because my memory is really bad. I am great at remembering logical things. So if you ask me about a formula or how something works, no problem. I've learned it 10 years ago, absolutely crystal as day. But anything else, I don't remember more than a couple of years. It's really bad. So in terms of reoccurring pictures or things like that, very difficult to say. But definitely when I met with a challenge, usually a technical one, of how to design this thing, how to build this thing, or even a life challenge. What are my next steps? What do I want to do with my life? How do I imagine things working out? I definitely start mulling over it and exploring the options. What would happen if this, if that, sort of trying to go through them. And that's not exclusively a conscious process. I've definitely had it many times where I would think about something for a bit and then go do something else. And then I would come back a couple of hours later and I would sort of, in my head, the options for that initial problem would kind of emerge. Sort of like my background thinking was mulling over the problem again and again. And I would say that's, to an extent, I'm probably doing it a bit too much, sort of almost anxiety and overthinking, but equally I find it really beneficial of knowing what the options are. So yeah, definitely having lots of those thoughts experiments. It's also a fun thing to do. It sounds like both you and I try and think things through and plan at least longer term, but probably that's not everyone. If you're living in the moment and going with the flow, I imagine a lot more quick decision making as opposed to mulling at the bigger picture. When you have those thoughts, especially the longer term, it's not planning of your life, but longer term thoughts of how your life is going, or even the evaluation of what has been happening. In my opinion, those are very important things, because if you don't have the moments to assess what has happened, is that good, bad, where is it leading, you would be going on a trajectory you have no control over. And I think there's a really good Vertasian video on what promotes this sort of longer term thinking. And a big part of it seems to be boredom, because if you're occupied constantly, you're going to work, you're coming back, you're going out with friends, constantly something happening, you are getting quite sucked into the day-to-day aspects of it. And I think that's part of what you were saying about doing, starting up this business and thinking about the things, is you're very occupied with the details and you're losing the bigger picture, not because you don't care about it, but because you don't have the luxury of thinking about it. It's kind of like a lower priority because it's not immediate. But if you're bored, all of those immediate things immediately get discarded because you're bored. You're obviously not thinking about them. So that's when you can start daydreaming and thinking and assessing. And to that extent, I think it's very important to be bored every now and again, to give yourself the luxury and the freedom to think these things through. And that's becoming less prevalent nowadays because you constantly have your phone. If you're waiting for the bus, you no longer just stare blankly into the distance. You immediately on your phone. On the bus, you're on your phone. You're doing some monotonous task. Instead of thinking and being somewhere in the clouds, you have a podcast on. Nothing against podcasts, I love this. But every now and again, I think we need to go back to a more primal state where your brain's not being bombarded by a ton of things, where you can just sit and think. And that's a scary place to be, especially if there have been issues you have been delaying for a long time. Very scary place to be. But if you're not comfortable with yourself, there will be a moment when those thoughts come, and it's better to deal with them sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was a long monologue, but
no, I mean,
yeah,
I'm so glad that you brought it up. Is something that, not scheduling of boredom, but embracing boredom is something that I'd say I learned from you, or at least I've tried to enact in my own life as a result of hearing your perspective on it, because I'm someone who tries to squeeze too much out of the time that I have in the day sometimes. Right. And I, over the past few months, have been a bit more conscious of taking time to do nothing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's been so helpful.
Right. So what prompted you to do that in the first place?
Well, I remember ages ago you talked about, you've just had interesting takes on relaxation and chilling and doing nothing generally. I think what caught my attention with you saying those things is you're incredibly well accomplished and you're doing amazing things, and you're engaged in projects that are impactful, meaningful. You're very intelligent. You're not someone who I would have put in the camp of, oh, they do nothing occasionally, right? Because I don't know whether
I'm just lazy.
Maybe. But I don't know, maybe there's just like this assumption that I've had about people who are successful or who are very competent in what they do, that they're always doing those things. And to me, it would, like, the thought of not doing something with your time feels counter to progress, but it's actually the opposite. Right. It's necessary for progress.
But you are actually doing something with your time.
Exactly.
It's not anything material. You're not building anything. You're not learning, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening.
Yeah. And I found it incredibly useful to reframe that use of time in my head as actually a use of time.
That's incredible to hear. So yeah, what has this enabled you to do?
Pause and reflect and reassess my assumptions about the future. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that Veritasium video, I did actually watch it, and I think one of the things that I liked that he said was boredom forces you to pay attention to your state. So that moment of boredom actually forces you to think, okay, why am I bored? What else could I be doing? Why would I be wanting to do that? Like, it raises all these other questions.
Love that.
you're not necessarily thinking about when you're laser focus on whatever it is that you think that you should be doing. So yeah, practically speaking for me, in the mornings now after I enjoy my breakfast, I literally just sit there.
Really?
I sit there with my coffee for like 5 minutes.
Love it.
10 minutes, something like that. You know, my mind wanders. It's not quite a meditative practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to consciously empty my mind. I'm somewhat going with the flow of my own imagination. So yeah, there's definitely something about reconnecting with your imagination and your thoughts and where your head is at. And the only way that you can do that is if you actually take the time to do nothing and give your brain a chance to go down that path.
Completely agree. I would say also doing this does help with creativity, because that wandering, your mind going places, exploring those probably unrealistic scenarios, I would say that helps in figuring out how to get from point A to point B, even if they're imaginary. But the other thought I have is that's also a bit of a dangerous thing to do, because if you go too far and you're being bored too much, you can dwell on things a bit too much, and that can become unhealthy with setting expectations, with worrying about things that might be insignificant.
That is such an interesting tension to pull out. You have to reconnect with what's actually happening.
Because you start living in your imagination.
Yeah.
And the world all of a sudden is a scary place because you don't know what's going to happen. Whereas in your mind, you can control anything.
Yeah, in your mind, there's almost no bounds on what you can create, right?
Absolutely none. Have you experienced lucid dreaming?
I have experienced lucid dreaming.
How was that?
Wild. Yeah, absolutely wild. I actually lucid dream, I wouldn't say frequently, but I've gotten in the process of writing down my dreams, and that's helped me, I guess, become a lot more aware in my dreams /
right,
access some element of lucid dreaming more frequently. But there's been a few occasions where it's like full blown lucid dreaming. I'm like, whoa. You wake up and you're like, wow, I had full control. Why did I choose that dream?
Have you seen the film Limitless?
Yes, I love that film so much.
Great one. But that's exactly what happens in the lucid dream. Is like you have all the power to do whatever you want. It's incredible.
But yeah, I see why this can be a dangerous thing though, right? Like if you're someone who is incredibly curious, incredibly creative, has a really wild imagination, and you let that imagination run wild, that can backfire.
I mean, that's drugs as well, right? The world is boring. If you have the power in your dreams to do anything you like, to slay dragons or whatever you want, then day-to-day life, kind of boring.
Kind of boring, yeah. But no, we like the boredom. We should embrace the boredom.
I love it. You need to have the reverse boredom. If you're getting too bored and too creative, you need to take a pause from that and go into the boring normal life to bring you back. You need to be bored both ways.
Yeah, bored both ways.
Love it. There are some activities also, because it's not, being bored doesn't have to be sitting and doing nothing. And for me, a big part of it is actually cooking. I find it quite meditative. Chopping the veg, putting them in, because usually it takes an hour to cook, and during that hour, because I rarely put on music or podcasts or a film, I find myself being able to think things through and sort of having a time when also no one's bothering you. You're isolated, you're doing this thing. It's monotonous enough that you can blast away.
It also comes back to flow, and the more you experience flow in your life, supposedly the more meaningful it is. And to me,
what's flow?
All right, so flow is the sweet spot where the level of challenge is around about the same as your level of capability.
Right.
If the challenge becomes too great, you dip into anxiety.
Yes. Yeah.
If your skill outweighs the challenge, you dip into boredom.
Right. And that middle spot where it's exciting and new and challenging enough.
Yes. But I think a core aspect of flow, supposedly, is you need to be getting a constant feedback between what you're doing and what the implications of that thing is.
Mm-hmm.
And failure has to matter. So
right.
in the context of cooking, I like to me, cooking is sort of the thing that brings this to life in a way, because failure matters. If you don't cook something correctly,
People are hungry.
people are hungry and you're hungry, and if it sucks, then that's not good. But there's always something to learn with cooking. Like you can never completely lose yourself. There's always,
True.
especially if you're trying something new, oftentimes you're not cooking the same thing exactly every single day. So there's always this level of presence that you need to bring to the experience. And if you're pushing yourself to try something new, then again, you're sort of dancing in the space of, well, I've cooked stews before, but now this is a new stew, and like
I'm adding extra ingredients. I'm
Yeah.
missing this.
and I don't know when to add this ingredient in. Maybe like I haven't used this oil before, and it's sort of multifaceted. It's the most reliable way, I think, for accessing that flow state, where the world sort of melts away and all you're thinking about is the task that you're doing, but you're not doing it completely mindlessly.
It's not boring. You're still engaged.
Yeah.
But that can be anything. I guess for us it's cooking because we enjoy that. But that can be any sport that you play, any day-to-day activity or work, being with friends, meeting people probably as well.
Absolutely. As well, certain people, certainly you can slip into that flow state of conversation. Whereas if someone's new, potentially you'll be thinking about things too much in a way.
Yeah, it's like when you move to a new school and you have to meet everyone and you have the same conversation of, hey, what's your name? What are your hobbies? And
Yeah,
you
it's quite
explain,
stressful.
yeah.
It's quite stressful. But equally, if you see the same people every day, you might just sort of take it for granted and even feel bored in certain situations.
You run out of topics to discuss at some point.
Yeah. So distance is a good thing on occasion.
That's very true, actually. When because I go back to Bulgaria quite often to see family, see friends, and it's quite refreshing seeing them, because in high school we used to spend every day together, and I absolutely love this. But now that we have a bit more distance, when I go, there are new developments. They're like, how have you been? Have you traveled anywhere? There's sort of freshness in it. Although I definitely still miss those guys and wish to spend more time with them. Not being fully occupied and being with the same people every day is, I absolutely agree.
100%.
As a very side note, I love when you're thinking about something, not something that you start to gesture more. I absolutely love that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what, things like cooking?
For instance, in the first set that we did, when I asked you about sort of what's been the biggest challenge in being your own boss and setting expectations, like you really took a moment and you started speaking a bit more slowly and gesturing, explaining, drawing graphs, things like that. Whereas, for instance, with the flow, because it's something that you're a lot more sort of calm, explaining like a professor.
Oh, because it's a territory that I am familiar with.
I would say so, yeah.
Interesting.
So it
I
seems
wonder
like,
if I'm using the gestures as a way of thinking through what I'm saying.
or a way of expression. because you haven't practiced explaining this thing, so you need extra ways of conveying information.
Holy shit. Thank you for pointing that out. I hadn't really considered that.
You're never going to watch the playback the same way ever again.
Wow. I don't even want to talk about anything else now. I just want to talk about
I mean, I'm happy to explore the topic if you want.
Well, I'm trying to think, because it sort of comes back again to the imagining pictures in your brain when you're thinking through things. Clearly that's something that we share, and yeah, I guess I'd love to explore that a little bit more, because certainly if I take podcasts, for example, right, I listen and I watch. In fact, I very rarely listen. I always watch podcasts.
Really?
Always.
Because before today, I had actually not thought that podcasts also have a visual aspect. They've always been just something you listen to.
Yeah, I find that interesting, because to me, it's the opposite way around.
Where do you watch podcasts?
On YouTube or sometimes Spotify as well has.
Does Spotify have the videos?
Certain people have Spotify videos.
The more you know.
I think Joe Rogan has videos on Spotify. YouTube is 90% of what I watch, though. Like,
yeah, you're right. I have seen some videos of the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, years, right? Like, even going back to university, for me, podcasting was just my favorite source of entertainment, but it's also been a tremendous avenue for personal growth. Like, I think I've learnt a lot about life, a lot about people, a lot about myself.
Wow, you're one of the first podcast listeners, probably.
Mate, or watchers. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it only became a thing in the last couple of years, right? Like
it's only taken off.
Yeah.
I've probably been watching podcasts since maybe high school, maybe like just start of university. But yeah, I don't like listening to podcasts. Like, I don't, or at least I don't often listen to podcasts solely audio.
But the video is just people talking. They're not doing anything. What
but
does that
you get
add?
So much more information from watching people talk about things
when they start to use their hands and
I
gesture.
Exactly, right? I think this is part of
Love
it.
it.
It's like if you're trying to understand new things, if you're being if new ideas are being introduced to you, and you really want to engage with those new ideas and not just passively sort of consume them in one ear and out the other, then having multiple ways of that information leaving an imprint on your brain is helpful. I think for me, podcasts, specific, not even just podcasts, but like watching someone explain something, I feel like I get a lot more information from that.
Okay.
And to make the link into what the whole pictures in your brain, oftentimes I've found that if I'm sat there and I'm just watching a podcast, in my mind, what they are talking about unfolds as images, or
right?
Like, and it doesn't have to necessarily be literal images. Like sometimes it is like abstract shapes, elements that in some way are tied to what is being said. These things evoke quite vivid shapes.
Yeah.
And images in my mind. So when you say you think in pictures, what do you mean by that? And in what contexts, if you give an example, does that seem to be most useful in your life?
Just before I answer, do you have an internal monologue?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I think different people think internally in different ways. Not everyone has an internal monologue. Not all people can think in pictures. So there's probably different ways that you and I don't think, but many people do. For me, it really depends on the situation. So if I'm imagining or thinking about a series of events. What could happen? How would I react? What my plan is? That's usually a vocal thing. There's the internal monologue, two or however many different sides. Because, I mean, I don't know why, but I guess it sort of mimics reality in some sense. When I'm considering how to build something, talking specifically about a geometric problem or putting something together or designing something, because both with electronics and mechanics, it tends to be sort of drawings of lines and shapes and things like that. That's usually a lot more visual to me. And the way that it kind of manifests, and I think I have pretty good spatial thinking, is there's kind of lots of lines. You know how when you sketch an object, you just sketch out the outside lines. That's pretty much how I picture things. So they're kind of a rough sketch of what I imagine it to be or how I want it to be, and then I can move them around, tweak them, sort of adjust them to make it work. But I suppose now that you've said that thing with when you're watching a podcast, evoking images and shapes and colors, that definitely also happens, but that's more if I'm imagining situations. So if I'm reading a book, it would be more like that. I not necessarily would have an image of the character, but I might have a color or something like that. So
Or a feeling, right? Sometimes.
oh, definitely, yeah.
Like an energy in some way.
Oh, energy, definitely. If the scene is quite dark, quite tense, you get like a deep blue or deep green color, maybe deep red if it's tending towards violence. And I guess finally is the hand gestures. I think I also do the same as you, where if my brain is working, my hands just go nuts and they try and explain things. And the best way I've seen this is one of my math teachers pointed out, is when I'm solving a problem, and more so when I'm explaining my solution to someone else, I would kind of write in the air, not so much because you can read it. That's I'm very much aware you can't read even if I draw it on a piece of paper, you wouldn't be able to read it because my handwriting is terrible. But it's more so kind of like its own memory space, if that makes sense. Like I would write a formula and I would immediately be able to recall it much better than if I had just thought about the formula. Something probably stems from the fact that normally when you solve problems, you solve them on a piece of paper, writing that down. So I guess it's a mimicry of that, but it really helps me remember things, and especially for calculations or drawings also, drawing lines, things like that.
It's almost like, have you ever held a sparkler? You know, those little firework
Oh
things?
Yeah.
And you're sort of drawing. Have you ever tried drawing?
And you move it very quickly.
You move it very quickly, but it leaves a trail.
Because it's
right?
so,
momentary trail. I think there's something about
100%.
it which is like that, where it doesn't stay there indefinitely. It just stays there long enough that it frees up some bandwidth in your brain to think about some other things. And in that process of continuously, leaving an imprint on the spatial environment around you and linking to the next thought and linking to the next thought, you convey an idea in a much richer way than if you had to sit there and think about it from A to Z on a piece of paper.
Definitely, but also as a way of explaining, because if you are sort of the visual cues help, because if you're saying A, then B, then C, then D, sort of even doing the simple motion kind of conveys the meaning that one follows the other, and that probably also helps your perception as well.
Damn.
The human mind is weird.
Very weird.
I would love to do neuroscience and just learn more about the brain, or psychology, or ideally both, really.
Before we go to trade-offs, there is a bit of a trade-off with visual thinking.
Okay.
Because sometimes the visuals can be so powerful that they cloud your freedom of thought to consider other options. If someone mentions something and that manifests in your brain, for you to hear that same thing again, like shortly afterwards, and to think about something completely new can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the stronger the visual is in your head, the harder it potentially becomes to free your mind of that visual.
Right, because it leaves such a big imprint that you can't really escape it.
Yeah. And then if certain narratives unfold in your head continuously, it's almost like watching the same movie again and again, like you know what's going to happen. So it's sometimes difficult to take a detour.
Isn't that true of any thinking that you apply, though? I guess if for you images are more vivid than internal monologue, that would manifest and be the more powerful, more burdening is not the right word, but yeah, you know what I mean. But for someone who is thinking less visually but has a stronger dialogue, maybe they get wrapped up in the same conversations.
Yeah. So whatever medium the narrative is unfolding in, if you're operating within that medium, it's very difficult to change direction.
So then you want to combine the different mediums to give you different options and be creative within your own thinking.
Wow. Okay. So if you are someone who, let's give an example of if you journal all the time to try and process your thoughts, and your thoughts aren't going in a direction that is actually helping you, maybe it could be useful to try a completely different medium to explore those same thoughts.
Probably.
Because it'll give a different flavor at least.
Yeah, because it's probably similar to what we were talking about of having knowledge in different areas and using one in the other. It's probably a similar thing. It would be difficult if you haven't practiced that way of thinking or if your mind doesn't work that way. But yeah, it will probably give you a different perspective.
I love that thought of the domains of knowledge don't have to be distinct in terms of science versus art versus music or whatever it is. It can actually be within the same domain, but span different dimensions or different mediums.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why when we were doing brainstorms at Innovia, you've probably prepared a few, but you try and prepare different stimuli for people. So getting pictures of things that are relevant or listing ideas of things that are broadly adjacent, and people have a conversation, and you draw and you leave people their own time to also consider, because anything can really work in discussion as well. You branch off ideas from others, all of these different things. Most of them probably don't give you the best idea, but each one gives you a nudge and it might manifest in a good one.
So again, another danger with this sometimes can be if you present an image to someone to help try and explain a point. Yeah. If you present an image to someone to try and explain a point or to get their imagination going, like to inspire them, it can rob them of their imagination.
We've gone full circle. Absolutely, yes.
Right? Because, I mean, Johnny Ive, who's an incredibly famous designer who was, central to... Basically, he was a foundational figure in Apple when they created the iPhone, the iPod, all of this incredible stuff.
That's groundbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, he's just an incredible designer, creative in many respects, and also person. But
visionary as well. It's not just the design. Exactly.
But one of the things that he has said on multiple occasions is how fragile ideas are, and how you can as soon as you call something a chair, you've given it a name that evokes such a strong association in people's minds of what a chair is that now you don't really get to explore new ideas in that space. You've robbed everyone of the exploration of what it could have been.
Very true. Is that in a way similar to how knowledge robs you of options? Now that you have seen a picture of the thing, you can't. It's like when you tell someone not to think of a pink rhino, you can't not think of a pink rhino. It's
That's going to be the imprint in my mind right now for the rest.
Very true. I think I unconsciously, when I've been doing brainstorms and I've been the one structuring them, I've always let people think on their own first and then given different stimuli or ideas that they can expand upon. But now that you've said it, that's the way to do it, because otherwise if you start off with ideas, people are just going to iterate on them. They're not going to come up with anything vastly different.
Yeah, anchors their mind to that.
So if you go to sessions for creativity, how do you make one such session actually nourish creativity as opposed to just give new ideas that constrain?
So one way of doing this, which I witnessed at I think it was at an AI workshop actually at Nottingham Trent University. We were basically being given a tutorial about how to use Midjourney and what the process would be to create something new, right? To generate an image of, whatever the product or idea is. And what I found really interesting about the process that they use, and I think is actually intuitively the process that we used in some ways at Inovia and certainly in a lot of other areas, is to do with levels of abstraction. So rather than saying we are designing a chair, you would say we are trying to design a means of sitting in a given location and leave it at that level of abstraction which gets your mind going. So yeah, you might think of a chair, but you might think of a flying carpet, you might think of a cloud, you might think of a jet ski seat of some sort. Like it takes your mind into lots of different directions. So I think if you can almost calibrate the right level of abstraction for people in a creative session, then you give them enough guidance to make sure that they are actually going to generate the kind of output that you need, but you're not robbing them of their own exploration of what the thing could be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're giving that initial push, that challenge of think of this type of thing, but you're not giving the constraints of it.
And then you can always impose constraints later. But if you begin with the constraints, that can cloud people's judgments, or at least
Very true.
It can shortcut their thinking. And it's not, obviously creativity can thrive off constraint as well, right? Often when there is so much constraint, that's when you have to be creative.
It's too it's impossible otherwise.
But equally, if you're trying to think about something completely new, then you probably shouldn't introduce anything familiar.
And could we extend this to what we're talking about, knowledge constraining creativity? So if the knowledge, instead of being shown as methods of doing something, so like if you present with situation A, do this to solve it, but instead with principles of these are the fundamental laws, because you can't really go outside the laws of physics, for instance, but then not telling you how to put them together, then that could allow you to problem solve more creatively, in theory.
Yeah, one of the things that I admire a lot about, the scientific process, or at least, the kind of things that I witnessed at Innovia working with engineers and physicists and people from that walk of life, is the first principles approach to things, and how
Very
powerful
true.
that can be when you're trying to solve a very difficult challenge or come up with something new. By reasoning from the ground up, you open up all possibilities.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, taking that step back allows you to see more of the options, at least to consider them.
Yeah.
Depends on the problem, right? If you want to design the best chair, you need to start with a chair. But if you want to rediscover how to sit, you should probably take the step back.
I think because with physics, it's so grounded in like indisputable truths, right?
Yeah.
Like there are foundational laws that you can reason upon. Whereas it's rare that other domains have quite that level of like absolute grounding.
Very true. It's a bit difficult being creative in physics, although technically the laws of physics, they're not laws. We don't know necessarily they're true. They hold true to the best of our knowledge.
For now.
For now. Yeah. I mean, Newton's law of
Interesting.
gravity was the norm for however many 100 years until Einstein was like, no, actually, these experiments we've done don't quite work with the current theory, so we have to expand it. So who knows, in a few years, possible that we have to rewrite the textbooks. I mean, in astronomy, we definitely had to rewrite the textbooks even while we were at school, because how black holes work, neutron stars, all of that was still being discovered and theorized about.
But all of those discoveries, did new discoveries in physics typically come as a result of building on the first principles up?
I don't think the first principles are absolute. You can challenge the first principles. For instance, the Big Bang theory of how the universe was created. That's an educated guess. I guess before Einstein, for gravity, the fundamental principle was that bodies with mass attract each other. But then it turns out that that's not really what happens, or at least to our current understanding, not what happens, is that objects, not with mass, but objects with momentum, because light also does this, and light doesn't have mass, bend space-time. So space and time are somehow related, and that whole thing is like a sponge. You can compress in certain areas and stretch it in others. And instead of objects being attracted to objects with mass, they are, when you have this sponge that's being curled in, it's more that objects are following that curvature and falling into the curvature as opposed to being pulled out by other objects. Let's imagine it on the 2D plane.
Yeah.
Newton's law of gravity say if you have two apples, one apple attracts the other, so they want to come next to each other.
Yep.
And if you have the Earth and the Moon kind of goes around. The Earth is constantly pulling on it, and that's why it goes around in a circle, similar to how if you get a rock on a string and you spin it. But what Einstein is saying, no, there's no attraction force between the two. What happens is on that flat plane, when you put the Earth, it creates a bit of a well.
Yes, I've seen this.
And then when the moon goes around, the moon's not attracted to Earth, but rather the slope of the well is pushing it in.
So it's the Earth has created the necessary conditions for
Exactly.
the moon to approach.
But it's not directly.
Yeah, it's not like there's one magnet and another magnet.
Yeah.
It's just that one entity has arranged reality in such a way where
and
this
even
can now happen.
And the even more weird part is that it's not just objects with mass that do this. Light can also bend the space-time curvature, which is ever the more weird, I think. I could be wrong about this, but I think, energy can also do this. And because of this curvature, because light, it doesn't have mass, it can't really experience force. But because the curvature, you have this well, light also gets redirected by massive objects.
Wow.
So
is this how black holes work? Because
Exactly.
they're so dense that they are not attracting the light, but they are preventing the light from traveling anywhere other than into itself.
Exactly. If you've seen those funnels for coins where you put your coin and it goes in and in and in. Black holes do exactly the same. At the edge of the black hole, the walls are vertical. So even if you're going sideways, you can't really go up and escape. You're bound to go in and in forever. So it's exactly that. Have you seen Interstellar?
Yeah.
The way that the disk is in front of the black hole, it's sort of flat and horizontal, but on the way back, it kind of curves up.
Yes.
And the reason for why it curves up is you have the black hole and the disk is actually flat, but the light from the back of it going to your eyes doesn't go in a straight line, but instead does this and it curves towards you. And for you, it looks like it's coming from up here, which is why you see the disk being up there, but the disk is down and the light is the one doing the curving.
This is wild.
Love physics. But who knows? Maybe all of this is wrong as well. So in physics, you can absolutely challenge these fundamental assumptions or laws the way that this did. And the theory of the Big Bang is just one of the theories of how the universe got created. And similarly, dark energy and dark matter, the things that are pulling galaxies apart. Only one theory about it seems like the most plausible one, but it doesn't explain all the things.
Blow my mind a little bit. That's okay. But I think in some ways, though, isn't a distinction, or maybe it's not a distinction, but I guess where my mind was going a little bit with discoveries in physics versus, say, other domains of creativity, for lack of a better word, is that sometimes creativity is so non-linear in the sense that it seems to appear out of nowhere without you necessarily thinking consciously about it.
True.
That it feels a bit different. But then I guess there must, you hear about discoveries in physics where, I mean, the cliche one, right, is Isaac Newton with the apple falling, right? Even in that situation where something came to someone, in that moment, they are able to rationalize why that thing is a new discovery.
Yeah. In painting, you can do whatever you want. You're not constrained at all, not even by the canvas, as we've seen with some of the more modern pieces of art, of tearing up the canvas or taping a banana to it. Whereas with physics, you are constrained by the universe, because there is a fundamental way that things work, and the data you get from experiments, your model has to fit that. So yeah, you're right. It is a lot more constrained.
Yeah, and I guess with the example of, a piece of art which, it moves people, they might not necessarily be able to explain why it moves them so. Whereas with physics, a new discovery should be able to be proven in some way.
Can you explain why gravity moves you? Now you can.
Wow, I love gravity. It's just so moving. All right.
That was a good tangent.
So moving on from, I guess, the conversation about how fucking cool physics is, just to tie a bow on it, I think what I've taken away from this conversation is that there is inherently a trade-off when it comes to the short-term activities and behaviors that we engage in, which seem to ignite our imagination, and yet in the long run actually shrink our imagination. And there's also a huge trade-off in the things that we expose ourselves to, or the knowledge that we gain can actually restrict our thinking. And I guess the challenge then becomes in the modern world where inspiration is abundant, stimulation is abundant, knowledge is abundant. How do we adequately dose ourselves with the things that can go both ways? It's like too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? And certainly in the case of creativity, denying yourselves the things that can ignite your imagination can actually enhance your imagination. So it sounds like being a great person is somewhat reliant on your ability to take time to consider the great things that you have done and the great things that you could do in the future. So, great person, Ruzhev.
Likewise, back to you.
You are a great person, and I really do feel grateful, not just to call you a friend, but to call you a very good friend. And I'm also incredibly grateful that you'd spend the time and attention today talking about some really cool shit that I think we could talk forever on any one of these topics. Clearly.
100%.
But if next time we do talk forever, maybe we eat the Banitsa at the beginning.
Perhaps. Or we attach a microphone as we're normally chatting. No, thanks so much for the opportunity. I absolutely love just generally chatting to you. And I think that's what we clicked on at Innovia. So yeah, this has just been the great continuation of just being good friends, I would say.
Hell yeah. Great continuation. And I look forward to the next time.
V2, stay tuned.
Catch you later. If you're curious to learn more about the pieces we've created in response to today's discussion, or if you'd like to explore the full archive of pieces on our website, you can find a link in the description below. We'd love to hear what you think. And finally, we'd like to thank you for tuning into the NAİMİ STUDİO podcast and for supporting our mission to help people cultivate meaning through creativity. Lots of love, and we'll see you later.